The corporate mission is not the corporate mission, it's the mission of the leadership. It's this collective dream of a small group of people, the leaders. But everyone working in the organization has their own vision. The goal or the responsibility of a great leader is to know everyone's personal vision. One person here at our office wants to buy their first house. Another person wants to learn to speak Spanish. Another person is their fifth year void of cancer and they're about to celebrate it. Once I understood what we're looking to achieve individually, my job is to keep that vision in front of them. How are you doing on that, Amy, or Mark, or Jim, or Kelsey? How are you progressing? And then when I support the achievement of their dreams, I'm not fulfilling them. This is not Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about all in. Wouldn't you love for your employees to be all in all the time? My hope is that you can lean into today's message and become a better leader because of it. Now, we're going to be talking with Mike Michalowicz. Mike has been on the show before. Mike has talked about some of the other books that you might know of, The Pumpkin Plan, Profit First, Clockwork, all great books. But now he's got All In, How Great Leaders Create Unstoppable Teams. There it is. Just came in to focus there if you're watching on video. But what I really love about this conversation is we dive into some of the terms that we may have heard of before, like psychological safety or ownership. And we start to unravel them so that you really can understand them and apply them inside your teams and, as a leader as you grow. So my hope is that you will lean into this and really apply what you're learning. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We have a leadership development platform where we help managers become leaders. And those two things are the driving force behind companies growing faster, maintaining the pace of growth. When they have great leaders and they have managers that are acting as leaders, you really have something special and you're able to align your people. In fact, you maybe even get them all in. But my job is to help you do that, not through just words or through this podcast, but through coaching. I really believe in coaching, and I'd really love for you to re-engage with us. If you're looking for a chance to go and explore what we're doing, you can sign up for a virtual conversation. So if you go to corelevation.com/virtual conversations, you will see that we gather once a month with other CEOs, other executives of fast growth companies and discuss a topic. Last month was the how to lead Gen Z. This next month will be about how to hire superstars. So I'm really looking forward to sharing with you what it takes to do that. If you want to sign up, just go to corelevation.com/virtual conversations. Now, here's the interview with Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well, Gene. How are you?
I am fantastic. Always love having you on the show. You've been on here a few times.
A couple of times, man. I'm trying to become a regular.
Well, you publish so many books and they're so good. I just want to have you on to talk about what you're doing, what you're sharing. So I'm glad to have you here.
Dude, well, I kind of coerced you, right? I put you in the book. So now it's a pretty big story about what you teach. So
yeah,
now you're like obligated.
Page 97, if you guys are listening.
Yeah, it's right. Not only that, dude, you're in the index. I was like flipping through it, but you're in there featured. So there you go.
I know. And it's not just a little quote. I appreciate
it's a whole section. Yeah.
The shout out and sharing our work here. But I do want to talk to you about your book, All In. Like, love the title. Like, let's just start right there. Titling a book is really hard.
Yeah. And one of the challenges is what other titles exist that are the same or not. So what's interesting, and some people don't know this, when it comes to book titles, if a title already exists, you are permitted to have the same title. It's kind of like songs. Like there's a song called Learning to Fly or Learn to Fly. And who does it? You can't tell because it's Tom Petty or Foo Fighters or Pink Floyd. Well, book titles, you can do the same. So the first thing is All In already exists. Like I ain't the first to use that term, but there's poker books on it. There's all these books. The next question is there one in this genre, which is leadership? And there was some close, but not really. So, okay, that became a title. The second thing is it has to be representative of what people want. So there's many title structures. You can do mnemonic titles and so forth, but this is an aspirational title. I want my team to be all in. But the most interesting thing was the subtitle. We originally had it said how to build an unstoppable team. We changed it to how great leaders build unstoppable teams. When we use great leaders, the click-through, we were doing click testing, the click-through rate went through the roof. And it's like, oh, we aspire to be a great leader that creates an all-in team. And that was an important variable for the title.
I'm glad you went through that, because I'm actually writing my next book, and we talk about great leaders a little bit, but maybe I'll lean into that.
Yeah, maybe put in the title. I invite you to do some click testing. There's a tool called PickFu, which is PickFU, which is kind of a horrible title, but that website has an anonymous group. So you can kind of sprint test something where within an hour or two, you can get some statistical significance, 500 respondents, and you can see what the trend is on different subtitles and stuff.
Well, we're here to talk about your book, and I will have already let the audience know about some of your other books. I can't pick a favorite. I know my first book with you is The Pumpkin Plan.
Oh, well, I thought All In would be your favorite because you're in the book.
Well, that was the first favorite. And then there was Profit First, which was, just an amazing transformational book that's pretty simple idea, but people need it. People need to be reminded. And, it was very executed extremely well. And then there was Clockwork. And I know you've had other books too, but those three books really shined for me. Clockworks especially helped me specifically with my podcast, getting the system of the podcast running smoothly.
Oh, I love hearing that.
So I really wanted to go back that far. And you are the best. And I've said this to you before, but when you read a book, it's not easy. But you put so much personality and so much entertainment in it. It is exciting to hear an Audible book from you. Every time.
Dude, that means the world to me, because I really do believe in the necessity to be consumable.
Yeah.
I think entertainment, if I may be so bold to say that, maybe I don't deliver necessarily perfectly that way, but it needs to be engaging to a point where there's not just education, but there's a hook, a reason to stick around. And I try to do that in all the work I do.
Well, you do a great job.
Thank you.
Today we're going to focus on All In, which is probably the perfect book for our audience. Most of the people listening in there are CEOs or executives inside of fast growth companies. And my audience, what I do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you putting me in the book, but it's not easy to write a book. So my favorite question to start with an author is, why did you have to write this book?
Yeah. So what I do for all my books is I use a method I call DMO. And it starts, the D stands for desire, M stands for method, and O stands for outcome. When I look is in any situation, what's the desire and what's the actual outcome? And if there's a mismatch, particularly a significant mismatch, it's the M, the method in the middle, that's the problem. Most leaders, CEOs, and middle management and so forth want extraordinary teams. So I asked them, how do you do it? We interview is the recruiting phase. Well, I looked at interviews specifically and other things too. And our desire is A players or top performers, whatever the label is. And the outcome is miserable. It's like 5% of hires end up performing at the highest level of expectations we have for a sustained period. Some great performers come and go, but rarely they stick around. So I said, okay, the desire and outcome is such a mismatch. What's wrong with the method? It's like, oh, interviews suck. So what's the new method? And I found this thing is used by a $500 billion industry, the sports industry. They don't run a single interview. They do skill assessments. They also do what's called potential assessments through workshops. And it's the potential assessments that's most important. And it's like, this is what needs to be deployed. And then I found some organizations like Home Depot does this, Domino's Pizza does this, small companies do it too. And that became one of the reasons I had to write this book. There's other areas too, where the desire and the outcome is such a mismatch in leadership. I had to address those components.
So I believe in hiring as a very critical point to having a great team. Besides the skill tests and the potential assessments, what is it that people often get wrong in the hiring of their team members?
Traditional hiring, we lean into what's called experiential and innate abilities. And that's actually about 20% of someone's likelihood to perform well. So experiential is what you've done in the past is indicative of the future. We use a resume predominantly to evaluate that. And we all know, looking at resumes, how many of those people perform at the level you expect. Innate, very few businesses consider this, more are, and it's important, but it's not the entirety of the importance. And this is, Enneagram and StrengthsFinder, predictive indexers, Myers-Briggs. These are elements that show the wiring, or at least as best they can indicate how someone's naturally wired. But that's also, I would say, another 10%. So experiential and innate make up 20% of someone's ability to perform. It's the 80% is potential. And to define what potential is, how will this person perform in this environment? And of course, that's what we want to know. But many of us say we can't figure that out. Well, you can. You do it through these things called workshops. Here's one thing that we all know to be true. Top performing people thirst to learn more about their industry. They want to be the best. They keep thirsting to learn more. So stop interviewing, start educating. Because if I do an educational event, it will attract the top performers who want to perform at a higher level around that education. It's then through this education, I can observe their behavior and cherry pick the people with the most potential. So I'll just give you the Home Depot example. Home Depot is this thing where you can build birdhouses. And you would never know this is a recruiting platform because it's an educational event. You go down, you build a birdhouse, you bring your kid or whatever. And yes, get ingratiated with the store. You build an affinity toward them. That's absolutely part of it. And you're learning. They have an employee there that's also observing participation. The people who have the most questions, help the other parents. They are demonstrating potential because people who will do well, want to do well and will learn more. They will tap you on the shoulder at the end of this and say, wow, you've really shown great potential. You ever considered working at Home Depot? So we need to do the same. Let's stop looking at just experiential and innate. Let's start running these learning events so we can identify people with the most raw potential. And those, I think, will be your best candidates.
Now, we've been talking about hiring better, but the key here is you really want to make sure that you are able to understand what the job is, and you're able to create some kind of skills test for that specific job, not just a general skills test, but specific. And then you want to make sure that you're measuring potential, like Mike said. Now, he went into it with detail. When we're measuring potential, we're talking about some of the values of the company and figuring out how they align with those values, because if they don't align with it, potentially they will be a nightmare for us to lead and manage. So that's our take on hiring better. Back to Mike. Well, we talked about hiring people, but all in to me is about once they get there, once they land and get past the honeymoon phase, because that first 2 or 3 months is always pretty good. Like, got to check. I'm glad I'm here. Yeah. Then something happens, and a lot of things get in the way of leadership and performance. What are you finding from your experience?
All right, here I'm going to open up the shocking statement. I think the mission statement or goal for the organization is one of the most damaging things we can set. So there's the outrageous comment, but now let me give context. I used to own a business doing computer crime investigation, computer forensics. And I'll never forget this day, Gene. I was in my office running numbers. And I'm like, my gosh, if we do X, Y, and Z, we can achieve $10 million in revenue this year, which would have been the first time I've ever achieved that. So I came out of my office. I wrote in bubble letters on the wall, 10 million on the whiteboard. Actually, I hit it with a Post-it note so I could rip it off in a moment. And I called in my 30 colleagues. And I said, with great flair, this is the year we do 10 million. I did that cheesy guru, hands clapped, bow head, 10 million. And I rip off the sign that says it. And no one got excited. Like, I thought everyone would go, yes, we got this. Let's go, team. Everyone's like, nah, and walks back to the office. My assistant, Patty, said the most profound thing. She came to me and said, Mike, if we do this, you get the bigger house, you get the new car. That's your vision. What about our vision for ourselves? And I was like, oh, the corporate mission is not the corporate mission. It's the mission of the leadership. This is this collective dream of a small group of people, the leaders. But everyone working in the organization has their own vision. The goal or the responsibility of a great leader is to know everyone's personal vision. One person here at our office wants to buy their first house. Another person wants to learn to speak Spanish. Another person is their 5th year void of cancer, and they're about to celebrate it. Once I understood what we're looking to achieve individually, my job is to keep that vision in front of them. How are you doing on that, Amy or Mark or Jim or Kelsey? How are you progressing? And then when I support the achievement of their dreams, I'm not fulfilling them. This is not Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'm simply keeping it in front of them and showing the value of their own personal mission. Reciprocity kicks in, and then they care for the corporate mission, which is actually my dream as the leader of the organization.
I've got a similar approach with this, and I call it shared goals, which is where a manager or leader should be connecting with what does the person in front of you want to do that aligns with the team and aligns with the company. And when you have that, and it may not even be aligned with work, but if you can find that alignment, you really will have a different engagement at work because it's personal to the person.
No question. No question. Well, here's what's interesting. So we go to the step of saying, what do you want just in your personal life? Like, what is the great life you're trying to achieve? And then we say, what can we do for this job to facilitate it, right? How can we get you there? But also, what is the flexibility you need within the job to achieve it? So we've changed schedules for people. One person here is also Amy, who she has an elderly mother, and she's like, I want to be available for my mother when she needs me. And we said, we got to create the job where you have this flexibility where when you're at work, you can instantly call out while at work and head over to see your mom.
Yeah.
By doing this, she says, you care so much for me, Mike and team. I will, not her words, but her behavior, I will care so much for this organization. Dude, she's done insane things. I actually put a story about her. One day I came into the office on a Saturday, really early, it was like 6 a.m., just so I can focus on some stuff I wanted to think about. And the door opens up into our office a half hour later. In marches an army of these guys carrying tons of books. It was Amy's family, all her sons and her husband. I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, oh, there was a problem I heard of, this was during COVID, of book deliveries. I decided to reroute the books. You know, she has nothing to do with the books. She's at an administrative level. She goes, I rerouted the books to my house and delivered them. And we got them here because we need to stock them for a shipment that's coming out tomorrow. She took total responsibility for something I had no clue. And she said, I care so much about this organization in turn because we care so much about her.
Yeah. I would go beyond that. It was beyond responsibility. That was a sense of ownership.
That's exactly it. This company is her. It's funny. There's an indicator. I also talk about it in the book. When you hear your colleagues saying mine and ours about your organization, they've achieved what's called psychological ownership. When they say it's the company or your company, they're disassociating. But when they say our company needs to get these books out, my responsibility is to make sure that this goes seamlessly. That is the sense of ownership. It's funny. When I interview leaders, most common refrain I hear is, I wish the employees would act like owners or like shareholders. So the question, of course, is how do you do it? And you do it through techniques, deploying psychological ownership. Supporting their dreams is one of them. Another one is give people the flexibility, the control and authority to do something. I was saying, if you force people to comply, they'll seek to defy. If I rent a car from Hertz, they're going to tell me all these rules, fill it with gas or you're going to get penalized, no scratches or dent, all this stuff. And they check when I come back. And if I fail, I'm in trouble. So what do? I abuse the car otherwise. I do donuts in the parking lot. I'll punch it the second the light turns green to see how fast this Prius can go. But my own car, I don't do that. I definitely don't abuse it because I have psychological ownership. Psychological ownership is where I have control. I decide when I use it, where I park it, and so forth. I can personalize it. I program the radio stations. I know it in detail, and it's called intimate knowledge. So my colleagues, if you give people control, you can't give them absolute control. You have to work collectively. But if you give them a sense of control, the ability to personalize, that sense of it's part of me, and the ability to gain intimate knowledge, they'll have a sense of being a shareholder or a owner.
Mike's been talking about psychological ownership, and I love this. I simplify this a little bit. I've talked on stage about it in the book on page 97. There's a little bit of a vignette story about my research on ownership, but having people feel like owners. One of the biggest elements behind that is really understanding the how they're included into ideas, how you're empowering them, and then really the mindset of that. It's a two-way street. Ownership is something you have to give, but they have to receive it. You want to make sure you take a moment and ask the question to ensure that people are taking ownership. And when you have that, you have a much better chance to create the connection and drive that's underneath responsibility, and it's deeper. That's what ownership is. Back to Mike. We've been talking about how great leaders create unstoppable companies. What have we left out? Because then we can't go into everything. And I know a lot of it is just unpacked in the book all in. But what is it that really you feel like people need to know as we wrap up today?
Safety. We didn't talk about. We as great leaders have to set up a safe environment, and there's 3 levels of common consideration. One is physical safety, and it's ironic. You can be in a knowledge space and not have a sense of physical safety, and I'm guilty as charged. Our own organization, we ran a survey. We have 20 people collectively, and I said, "What do you have any physical safety concerns?" And you respond anonymously. People said, "Yeah, the alleyway behind our building, which goes to our parking lot, is pitch black at night." Well, in the winter, by 5:30, the sun's setting, it's dark. You can't see down this alleyway. And people by 2:00 in the afternoon are worrying about going down a dark alley. So we simply lit it up, and it gave a sense of safety. So it's interesting that if you have an environment where there's any sense of safety concern, any kind, they'll have consequences in performance. The other thing is relational safety. Do I feel comfortable with the people I'm with? And the only way to do that is by having social time. We are losing the water cooler, and the water cooler was not about ideation and creating new ideas. It was about connecting. It was about shared stories, and that's where trust comes about. That's where relational safety is. And the last one is emotional safety. Emotional safety is, can I be myself without negative consequence? Can I present myself in a way that people will respond to me by embracing me as opposed to rejecting me? So similar to relational safety, but it's an internal reflection. We need to work on those. And often it's the leader who shows emotional vulnerability that facilitates relational connection that has to be the icebreaker for everybody else.
I have a lot of leaders that, maybe they're a little bit older and they will say, I just don't get this younger generation. I'm just not into the touchy-feely stuff. But this younger generation is truly a little bit different. I know.
Sure. And we were different from our parents,
Absolutely. We've done this workshop. My wife is a generational expert. I don't know if you knew that about her.
I did not know that.
But we did some workshops yesterday, but people are a little bit different. So does this change at all with the younger generation, getting them to be all in? Because that's one of the biggest things. Like, they're very easy to quit or ghost you. They're, they don't put up with much. They won't even tell you. They're just like, I didn't feel it.
I'm done. Yeah. Yeah. And we don't even know. So this is a new generation. I believe the biggest thing I found in research was the COVID pandemic was the accelerant. What was a desire has become a demand. Meaning, I used to want to work from home. That was my desire. Now I expect to work from home. I wanted flexibility. Now I expect flexibility. Also, we're losing the tactile experience. So we're you and I right now, we're over a digital medium. We don't have the chance to shake hands or experience each other intimately. And that's same with our teams. And so therefore, it's much easier to ghost because I don't really know you anyway. You're just a font on the computer effectively, and me to you. So great leaders are building back tactile experiences. Now, you can demand people come to the office, but if you demand people come to the office so you can measure and control and assert authority, that is forcing compliance and you will get defiance. If we're setting up environments where people get to connect and have human connection, that is the greatest bond. And it's the leaders that see that. When I come into my office, Gene, and my team is sitting here talking and they're laughing and stuff, and I walk in the old days where authoritative Mike would show up, they would say, "Oh my God, pretend you're working." Now the continued conversation happens. They continue to laugh, almost like I'm not there. Because they don't feel the pressure of me, or I participate. And I know what's happening is that is the glue for my organization. The more these people appreciate each other, the more they're going to stay with me and the team. So that's what we need to bring, is a tactile experience.
Well, that's a good place to wrap up today. Mike, incredible book, incredible that you keep going and putting out, and just amazing work and really helping entrepreneurs, reduce the stress that it takes to build our teams. Because I know that's one of your big missions, is to really help entrepreneurs be successful and build the lives they want. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wow. I love his energy and his clarity when he talks. And this is the reason why books are so important, because the author of those books has to figure out what works, how do you communicate it to others, and to do it in a way that they can receive it. And if you do that really well, like Mike does, you're able to talk about these things in a way that we really get it quickly. And that's the point. Mike's incredible on stage. He's incredible through the Audible platform, the best ever. And then also just an incredible person as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed this interview. I enjoy bringing it to you. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.